Imagine you're in a car ride with God. Isn't that incredible? Like just spending one-on-one time with God, like a road trip. And it's awesome because God is there. Like he's like you're like, hey man, like man, we hanging out. Like you're my boy and everything. Like you're just having a great, grand old time, just hanging out with God. But then as you keep on driving, you see to your left and your right. It's like, hey, God, can we stop here? Like, this is my favorite spot right here. You're like, man, God, like, I'll introduce you to this. You know what I'm saying? Like, this food right here, my peoples, like, my friends. And God is like, hey, like, oh, like, man, they cool, they cool. But I got something better for you. You know what I'm saying? I got something better. I've been working on this. For real, for real. I've been working on this. Like, you're going to love it. And you like, okay, I believe you. I believe him. And then that trip becomes like maybe 5 hours, maybe 15 hours, maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years, and you're like, hey God, hey, can we get out right here? Like I've been in the car so long, and God is still like, hey, like no, like we going, and you become frustrated because you start to see things that you're leaving behind, and it's like, man, like I don't want to leave this, right? And you start to see the future that you you want, not what God wants, what you want. And each time God is waving at them, is like, hey, like we can't stop. We got somewhere to go. Bye. And each time it's the same dialogue, met with the same pressure and lessons. Oh, and this is not a regular car. This is not a regular road trip. It can't be. It's the rusty old car. It's reliable, but but everybody else says it's like, man, God, why can we get in a Lamborghini, right? And it's a lone trip, no E-way, just a straight line, like as if you're going, driving in Southern Illinois. It's a straight line. To the left and right of you, you see cornfields, not Walmart. You see cornfields. And then you get to this point. And you just scream out, God, God, I know where to go. And he's like, okay. All right. Like, hey, I've been teaching you all this time. You know where to go. And he allows you to get in the front seat. And what do? Do you go where God wants you to go? Sometimes, but not all the time. And you decide to just whip it around the corner. You go to your favorite spots and everything. And God is like, all right, like, hey, like, I don't want you to be here, but like, I'm still here with you. We got this, sort it out, and then leave your past, and keep on going. But then you decide, like, hey, nah, God, like, let me just go in, get a little snacks and everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, get some food. But then you start to see your past, and it's like, hey, like, this is cool, and God is just waiting for you. And then, like, without even knowing it, you get out the store and into a new whip with your decisions. Not every decision is a bad decision, but they become bad when those decisions are absent of God's presence. And we make ourselves believe that God co-signed on our decision. We're like, man, hey, God wanted me to do this. Where in reality, we actually forged his signature. Since he took so long in answering our prayers, right? And we were like, hey, God said I could do this, right? Like God made his way. And thinking that, oh, I'm the son, daughter of the king. I'm not gonna experience anything challenging. Then the job you prepared for so much turned you down. The school that was your dream, right? You get there and you think it's your ticket, and it turns to be a distraction, and you become less focused on what you should be doing while you're at that school. The people you assume were your friends leave you when you're down, or you come down to their level instead of allowing God to use you to help them elevate to yours. If only I would have stayed in God's car, none of this would have happened, right? If only I would have listened to his advice and waved bye to the onlookers. And this was me last year. I was working at this Christian school, this private Christian school, and like different challenges arose. It helped me to grow and learn how to be a leader. And like in that time, I felt that God was calling me to look for different jobs. So I was looking and everything, right? And I felt more encouraged because at times I was frustrated if I didn't get the job, right? But I felt more encouraged because I knew that if I don't get this job, I have a job to fall back on. I'm good. I'm straight, baby. I'm good. I have a job to fall back on. And what I didn't understand then that I do now is that I was in the car of comfortability. And God came, time and time again in this car to pick me up. But I was like, Dad, yeah, I'm coming out, but give me 5 more minutes. Just give me 5 more minutes. 5 turned to 10, 10 to 20 until God changed the script. So the school shut down. I have no job. I was clueless. I didn't know what to do because I was like, this was my safety net. Like, what's going on? And even though my decision was not inherently bad, it was costly. It was causing me to lose time. So God allowed me to work there for a season so he could prepare me for the next. And he might be doing that in your life as well. And it's easy for us to be comfortable in where we are. Like God is like drop you off at the store. I was like, all right, like, hey, you can be here, go to the park, like go meet with these people, like, man, they're great. Network. It's awesome. But then God is coming back. And like he knew I will become complacent. And that might be you. He knew that I will become complacent if I did not move to where he was calling me to move. And it wasn't me trying to move. God had to like take everything away. So he took away the platform. He took away, like, it's not like I was being egocentric, like I was like, man, like I did all this. Like, no, I was respecting God. I was like, hey, like God is doing this, right? For my life. But I was relying so much on the safety net. It's like, man, like if I don't get the job, I'm good. I'm straight. Like God and me, we straight. Like we don't get this. And when he took that platform, that safety net away, I was free falling. I was like, bro, like, yo, like, what am I doing? You know what I'm saying? And I was like doing Uber Eats. There's nothing wrong with Uber Eats, but like, it was like, man, like, I was applying for these full-time jobs, and it's like, what's going on? And now God is opening doors, and I'm growing more because I'm in God's car. And I wasn't trying to be in God's car. So I no longer care about the straight mundane patches, because the patches I was taking was not the best. The place he's taking me now, where I feel I do not belong, God is making space for me. God did not call me, then qualify me. He qualified me, then told me it's time to hit the road and leave everything behind. Do not take anything with you. The only thing you need to take with you to the next levels is the lessons that you learn, right? Not the things. Not like, sometimes you do have to leave people behind. It's not like and sometimes it's not even a goodbye. It might be a see you later. But I need to go to this next thing in my life. And that might be looking different for you. But for me, if I did not take that step and allow God to put me in the car, and this summer has been crazy, because like how I said earlier, with the car, and you see the decision to your left and your right, that was me. Like this summer, like God made me focus on him and only him. And in that, decisions from other people was like, hey, like this is taking too long, you should do this. And like at times I was like, man, you're right. But overall I was like, God is doing this for a reason. Like, let me just see it through. And different things will happen. It's like God was answering. It's like, all right, here's the next thing. Like I was like, oh, okay. And then I'll tell somebody, it's like, oh man, this is what happened, what's happening, and their understanding of it was not the same. And then I was challenged again until like the point of me having to tune in truly to God. And it's like, hey, God, like this car that I'm in right now, with these decisions, it's like it's bumpy. Like where are we going? Like we're off. Like we're on the terrain. Like we're off the road. Like what's going on? And God is making this straight because he's in the car with me. He's driving, even though it's bumping. He's in his SUV. Like he's good. You know, like where I was trying to drive in, you know, my old '96 Taurus that, you know, like during the winter time we need to like use like blankets on. You feel me? I'm gonna close with this story from the Bible. It's about David. At first, he wasn't King David. He was just David. So David was a shepherd. He was just a shepherd, right? Like how I was just a janitor this past year, preparing in the field, being qualified. So put your own your own story right there. David was just a shepherd. No, it's more than that. God was preparing him in the field, qualifying him where he was, not where he's going. You know what I'm saying? Like he didn't like just like boom, like alright, you killed a bear in a lion, now you're qualified. No, David was already qualified while he was working in the field. And then the lion and bear came and he used that qualification. He's like, hey, I got this. Like I'm protecting my own. And David was a man after God's own heart. His father asked them to bring food, bring food and some stuff to his bros. And this giant named Goliath was dissing God. So David already being qualified and all these different things that came up, he was in God's car, going in a straight line, like he was cool. He was like, nah, that's not gonna happen because like the God that I was riding with, God is faithful, God is loving, God is kind. Like God is saved me from a lion and a bear that would kill me. So who are you disrespecting God? So what David did after he told Saul, like, hey, this armor is not for me. This is not what I prepared for. You know what I'm saying? It's like I need to like be able to move. I'm athletic, bro. Like, bro, I'll do a 360 dunk on Goliath. 40 on his head. Boom. So he was like, alright, like go do you. Don't die. Don't die. And like the people, like his brothers was like, man, what you doing? Why you here? Like you should be all at home, bro. Like tending to the sheep. Like you ain't like that. You ain't made for this. But they didn't see him in the preparation. So David took a sling. He swung it around. He put the 5 smooth stones. He took his time. And it's crazy because I will be freaking out. I'm like, bro, what's going on? Like, and David was just put the stone in there. He was like, man, this one for him, this one for him. Like he put the stones in there. Like that's crazy. He knew God was gonna carry him through this victory. And when he swung the stones, the sling, one of the stones did a perfect spiral. Boop! It hit Goliath right in his forehead. The giant died. He fell to the ground, and David cut off his head. And when he did that, probably like, man, it was probably crazy. It was probably like blood just dripping down. David just like, just have a face like, just imagine that. Like after you see somebody's head get cut off and like war, like just like, ooh, like you will run too. The Philistines, they did run. They ran. Like, and even though David was doing everything right, a problem was arising. So King Saul became fearful and envious of David. In 1 Samuel 18, verse 10 to 11, it says that the next day an evil spirit from God rushed upon Saul, and he prophesied in his house. David was playing the harp as he usually did, but Saul had a spear in his hand. He threw the spear, thinking, I'll pin David to the wall. But David escaped from him twice. David was on the run for his life, and as you read the next chapters, David was running. Like, it was like time and time again. Like, Saul was kept on trying to kill him. Then at times he would be like, "No, bro, like, hey, like, man, I can see God's on your side. I won't do it anymore." But of course, he went back and he was trying to kill him. So God wasn't like, David, like, man, after you do this, this person won't like you. Like, after you kill a lion, the bear, you have to fight a giant. Or he might be telling you the job you have for 1, maybe 9 years. Like, you killed your giants, you killed your lions and your bears. Bravo for you. Like, that's great. Like, man, congratulations. God is saying congratulations. But now you're ready. Here's the real work. Like, man, like, I'm gonna take you to something crazier. Like, it's gonna test you, but you're gonna grow. And although David was on the run, God was there. So even though God is taking you to new things, God is always there. Just stay in the car. He was in the car and like, hey son, we about to say bye to your past and all your haters, right? That old rusty car was more than reliable. That mundane, straight, bumpy, like road with the SUV was the straightest path he could have took, like the safest path. And David, he did get out the car later in his life, and it costed him a baby. It costed him loyalty, having Uriah killed and having relations with Bathsheba. Like, his eyes were where he shouldn't have been. Like, I don't even think he should have been at the top of his house at that time, like just looking out, because in your idle time, sometimes that's where problems arise. And even though people might not see what you're going through, like, these sins, they start to eat at us, right? And we start to become them. And these decisions, or like, it might not even be a sin. It might be the decisions you're making. Like, you might think it's the best decision for you, but God is like, no, I have something better for you. And with David, he costing him a baby. And it costed him issues within his family. His son, one of his sons, Absalom, it's a crazy story. You gotta look it up. Just like First Kings, Second Kings, First Samuel, Second Samuel. Like, look all of it up. And ultimately, like, David was like, he told Joab, like, not to, like, man, don't touch my son. Like, man, like, let him live. Let him live. But Absalom had long hair. He was trying to fight David. He was like, man, he didn't like his father, because like all that stuff happened, and like it was just a crazy family. And so Absalom's hair got caught up in the tree, like, boom. And Joab's and his man came, right, and they saw him dangling for his life, and they cut his head off. Like, David was sulking, because like, that's his son. And David knew, like, through all this, David still had a heart after God, and he knew and remembered where God parked his car. So my question for you and for me, are you ready to leave the party? Are you ready to leave your past and get back in to the car with God? I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson. I hope it touched somebody, spoke to somebody. And do not be afraid to challenge yourself, to grow, because God is taking you to much better things, like to higher levels. But like, you have to read His word, you have to grow in it, and you have to be willing to allow Him to take things out of your life to replace it with new and better things. So I hope you guys enjoyed this message, and as always, peace, and I'll see you next Friday at the same time, same place, 7 o'clock. Alright, bye.